My name is Clara. I am 28 years old, and I want to tell you my story. It's not an easy story to share, so if you could, please comment fighting to give me a little courage. I live in a quiet mountain town where life felt simple and safe. My world was like the soft clay spinning on my wheel, calm and full of possibility. But I never could have imagined how one person and one beautiful lie would soon break my world into 1,000 pieces. Before him, my pottery studio was my world. It was a quiet place, a safe place, filled with the smell of wet clay and the soft hum of the wheel. I spent my days with my hands covered in earth, shaping bowls and vases. My life was simple. I thought I was happy. Then one afternoon, Julian walked in. He told me he was a writer, looking for inspiration in our small mountain town. He was different from other people. He didn't just look at my work, he saw it. I remember the first thing he said to me. "Your hands create magic," he whispered, looking at a vase I had just finished. He started visiting every day. Sometimes he brought coffee, other times just his quiet company. He sat for hours while I worked, never saying much, just watching, and he listened. He listened to my stories about the clay, about my dreams, about the quiet life I loved. I used to love the sound of his voice. With him, I felt seen. I felt safe. He talked about our future together, a writer and a potter. He said our lives would be a beautiful story, a masterpiece of art and love. I believed him. I thought our love was a perfect creation, something unique and special. But now, I know the truth. It was not a masterpiece. It was just a perfect copy of a story he told many times before. Slowly, things began to change. His words, which once felt like a warm blanket, started to have sharp edges. One day, I made a small, simple bowl. I loved its shape and the quiet feeling it gave me. I showed it to him, my heart full of pride. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he said, "It's nice, Clara, but it's too simple. People in the city want something more dramatic." His voice was gentle, but I felt a small crack in my confidence. The next week, he brought me a gift. It was a set of new glazes, bright and expensive. I felt a rush of hope. For a moment, I thought he really supported me. I told myself, maybe he was just trying to help me grow. I believed this was just a small problem, a misunderstanding. A month later, something wonderful happened. A small gallery in town sent me a letter. They wanted to give me my own exhibition. My hands were shaking as I read it. It was my biggest dream. I ran to show Julian the letter, my face bright with a smile. He read it. His face didn't change. He didn't smile back. "A local gallery?" he asked. His voice was flat. "Clara, your talent is bigger than that. Don't waste your time here." His words felt cold. I felt small. My dream suddenly felt foolish. After that, I said nothing more about the gallery. Every day felt the same. I worked in silence in my studio. The clay felt heavy in my hands. The joy was gone. I thought his words were the most painful part of our love. I was wrong. Completely wrong. That was only the beginning. It was a cold afternoon, and a soft rain was tapping against the windows of my studio. The quiet sound usually made me feel calm, but that day was different. That was the day everything changed. A woman I had never seen before stood at my door. She was holding a small umbrella, and her eyes looked tired and sad. I invited her inside. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on one thing, the tall, elegant vase on my main shelf. It was the one Julian said was his favorite. My hands started to shake. I didn't know why. I just felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. The woman finally looked at me. "My name is Sarah. she said. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. I saw your work online. This vase. It's beautiful. She paused, taking a deep breath. Julian gave me a poem about this vase. My heart stopped. I couldn't speak. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. I saw his handwriting. It was the same poem he wrote for me, the same words I kept under my pillow. Sarah looked at me with sad, knowing eyes. He is not married, Clara, she said softly. He is engaged to my sister. After Sarah left, the studio felt cold and empty. The sound of the rain was the only thing I could hear. I stood there for a long time, looking at the two identical poems on my workbench. One was mine. The other belonged to a woman I would never meet. I thought I would cry, but no tears came. The deep sadness I felt slowly washed away. Something else took its place, something cold and hard, like stone. In that quiet moment, I knew what I had to do. I sent Julian a simple message. It said, "Come to the studio tonight." He arrived a few hours later. He walked in with that same gentle smile on his face, holding a flower. He did not know that I knew his secret. For a long time, I said nothing. I just looked at him. I felt nothing. The man I loved was a stranger. On the table, I had placed the two pieces of paper, side by side, my poem and hers. He saw them. His smile disappeared. My voice was quiet, but it did not shake. Which one of us did you write it for, Julian? I asked softly. Or is there a third? His face turned pale. He started to speak, his voice quick and nervous. Clara, listen to me. It's not what you think. I didn't listen. I didn't want to hear another beautiful lie. I turned away from him. My eyes found the tall vase on the shelf, the one he called my masterpiece. I walked over to it. My hands were steady. I picked up the smooth, cold clay. And then I let it fall to the floor. It shattered into 100 pieces. Just like his lies. The sound of the breaking vase filled the room. It was loud, then suddenly, everything was quiet. A deep, heavy silence. Julian stared at the broken pieces on the floor. His mouth was open, but no words came out. The charming writer, the man with the gentle smile, was gone. In his place was a small, scared man. He slowly looked up from the floor. He looked at me. There was no love in his eyes. There was no sadness. I saw only fear, the fear of being caught. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. I just stood there, watching him. The silence was my answer. The broken vase was my answer. He took a step back, then another. He turned and walked out the door without looking back. He packed his bags that night. He didn't say goodbye. He just disappeared from my town, from my life. He left without a word, like a ghost who was never really there. After he was gone, the studio was finally quiet. It was a good quiet. The air felt clean again, like after a long storm. I didn't try to clean up the broken pieces. Not that night. I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the floor, right there in the middle of my quiet studio. I looked at the sharp, broken edges of the vase, glittering under the single light. There were no more tears. There was no more anger. I just felt empty, but it was a clean kind of empty. It was the feeling of a room. After all the old, heavy furniture has been moved out. Slowly, another feeling started to grow in that empty space. It was small at first, but it was warm. It was freedom. I took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The next morning, I woke up with the sun. I went back to the studio. I started to pick up the pieces, one by one, My hands were careful. I didn't throw them away. I looked at the broken shards in my palm, and deep inside, I knew what to do. I decided to make something new. Months passed. The seasons changed outside my studio window, but I barely noticed. I called the gallery and politely said no to their offer. I told them my work was not ready. Not yet. I spent the long, quiet days and nights at my wheel, but I was not working with new clay. I was working with the broken pieces of the shattered vase. I learned an old, beautiful technique, a way to mend broken things with lines of liquid gold. My hands worked carefully, patiently. I put every single piece back together. The vase was not the same as before. I thought it was more beautiful now, with its golden scars telling a story. I made a whole collection like that. Bowls with golden cracks, plates that were once broken, now made strong again. Each new creation told a part of my story. A story of breaking, of pain, and finally, of healing. When I was finished, I didn't wait for someone to discover me. I rented a small, empty space in the center of town. I painted the walls white and put up my own sign. It said, "Broken Pieces, an exhibition by Clara." On the opening night, the small room was full of people. They walked slowly, looking at my work in silence. I knew they didn't just see pottery. They saw a story. They saw the beauty in something that was broken. I stood among my creations, the golden lines shining in the soft light, and for the first time in a very long time, I smiled. It was a real smile, a warm smile that came from deep inside me. I was not waiting for anyone. I was not a broken piece. I was whole. Looking back, I see that the pain was a teacher. It taught me something important. I learned that true value doesn't come from someone else's praise. It comes from your own hands, your own voice. True peace, the kind that lasts, must be found inside yourself. You cannot find it in another person's heart. I know that now, and that is the most beautiful thing I have ever created. Clara's final thought is a powerful truth, and it's where her personal story becomes a universal lesson for our modern world. Her journey isn't just about a broken heart. It's about recognizing emotional manipulation, something very real today. Here at Peak English Stories, we see a critical lesson in how Julian operated. His pattern of intense affection followed by subtle control is a way to slowly erode a person's confidence. In any relationship, if someone's praise quickly turns into constant criticism that makes you doubt yourself, we must see it as a warning sign. The story also highlights the incredible power of courage. The truth was only revealed because another woman, Sarah, chose to speak up instead of staying silent. In a world where it's easy to hide behind screens, her actions remind us how vital it is to trust our instincts and support one another when something feels wrong. So, we encourage you to protect what makes you unique: your art, your ideas, your voice. Never allow anyone to diminish your creations or silence your passion, because your worth is, and always will be, non-negotiable. What did you think of Clara's final choice? Tell us in the comments. You can also simply comment 1 if you believe Clara's greatest victory was finding herself, or 0 if you think she should have tried to find a new love. If Clara's journey of strength and healing resonated with you, please subscribe to Peak English Stories for more. Your support helps us continue our work. Thank you for being here.